On Christmas Day, 1989, as gunshots echoed across a military base in Târgoviște, Romania, the world witnessed the fall of one of Eastern Europe's most notorious communist regimes. Nicolae Ceaușescu and his wife Elena, who had ruled Romania with an iron fist for 24 years, faced a hasty trial before being executed by firing squad. But while the dictator and his wife met their brutal end in front of cameras, 3 questions remained unanswered. Where were their children? What happened to them in the chaos of revolution? And how do you survive when your parents were the most hated people in the country? Today we uncover the largely forgotten story of Valentin, Zoya, and Nicu Ceaușescu, 3 individuals whose lives were forever defined by their surname, and whose fates reveal the complicated aftermath of tyranny's collapse. To understand what happened to the Ceaușescu children, we must first understand the regime their parents built. When Nicolae Ceaușescu seized power in 1965, he initially presented himself as a reformer. Romania established diplomatic relations with West Germany and denounced the Soviet invasion of Czechoslovakia. For a moment, Romania seemed poised to chart an independent course within the communist bloc. But by the 1970s, any promise of liberalization had evaporated. Ceaușescu built a personality cult, rivaling that of North Korea's Kim Il-sung. His portrait hung everywhere. State media referred to him as the genius of the Carpathians and conductor. His wife, Elena, despite her limited education, was celebrated as a world-renowned scientist. Behind this cult of personality lay a brutal security apparatus. Neighbors spied on neighbors. Children informed on parents. Dissent was crushed with brutal efficiency. By the 1980s, Ceaușescu's economic policies had reduced Romania to desperate poverty. Determined to pay off Romania's foreign debt, he exported the country's agricultural and industrial production, leaving Romanians to face severe food shortages, electricity rationing, and unheated apartments during freezing winters, all while the Ceaușescu family lived in unimaginable luxury. As their parents tightened their grip on Romania, what kind of lives did the Ceaușescu children lead? And how did their privileged existence prepare, or fail to prepare them, for what would happen when it all came crashing down? Unlike many dictators who groomed their children for succession, Nicolae Ceaușescu never publicly designated an heir. Yet his 3 children, Valentin, Zoya, and Nicu, each occupied privileged positions within Romanian society. Let's meet them one by one. Valentin Ceaușescu. Born in 1948, Valentin was the eldest and, by most accounts, the least involved in politics. With a doctorate in nuclear physics, he pursued a career in science rather than government. Valentin married 3 times. His first marriage to Iordana Borila, daughter of another high-ranking communist official, connected 2 of Romania's most powerful families. Later marriages to Tamara Dobrin and Roxana Andreescu followed. Despite his scientific credentials, Valentin wasn't completely removed from Romania's power structures. He served as a member of the Central Committee of the Romanian Communist Party and held an influential position as chairman of Romania's Football Federation, giving him control over Steaua Bucharest, the Army's football club that became European champions in 1986. Unlike his siblings, Valentin maintained a relatively low profile. Romanians saw him as the most normal Ceaușescu, someone who at least attempted to forge his own path outside his father's shadow. Zoya Ceauescu. The middle child and only daughter, Zoya, born in 1949, represented another intellectual branch of the family. Like her brother, she pursued science rather than politics, earning a doctorate in mathematics and working at the Institute of Mathematics of the Romanian Academy. Among the 3 children, Zoya developed the most independent reputation. Reports suggest she occasionally criticized her parents' policies and lifestyle, though only in private settings. Her relationship with her mother was particularly strained, with Elena allegedly disapproving of Zoya's lifestyle and choices. Zoya married Mircea Oprean, an engineer, and maintained a somewhat lower public profile than her brothers. Yet she couldn't escape the privileges of being a Ceaușescu. Like her brothers, she enjoyed luxuries unimaginable to ordinary Romanians during the austerity years of the 1980s. Nicu Ceaușescu, born in 1951, Nicu was widely considered Nicolae's favorite child and presumptive heir. Unlike his siblings, Nicu embraced politics wholeheartedly, serving as secretary of the Romanian Communist Youth Union and later as party secretary of Sibiu County, a traditional stepping stone to higher office. Nicu developed a notorious reputation as a playboy with a violent temperament. Stories of drunken car accidents, Assaults on women and abuses of power circulated widely among Romanians. In one infamous incident, he allegedly struck and killed a young woman with his car while intoxicated, with no legal consequences. By the late 1980s, rumors circulated that Nicolae was grooming Nicu to succeed him. The younger Ceaușescu's ruthless personality and absolute loyalty to his father made him a plausible heir to Romania's communist dynasty. While the children enjoyed lives of extreme privilege, storm clouds were gathering. As 1989 dawned, Eastern Europe's communist regimes began falling one by one. How would the Ceaușescu children respond when revolution finally reached Romania's borders? And what fate awaited them when their parents faced the ultimate judgment? In December 1989, as communist regimes collapsed across Eastern Europe, Romania's turn finally came. The spark ignited in Timișoara, where protests against the eviction of Hungarian pastor Laszlo Tokes quickly evolved into broader anti-government demonstrations. Ceaușescu, returning from a state visit to Iran, ordered a brutal crackdown that left hundreds dead. On December 21st, he organized a mass rally in Bucharest, expecting to reassert his authority. Instead, the crowd turned against him. For the first time, Romanians watched as their conductor stood bewildered as boos and jeers interrupted his speech. Within hours, Bucharest exploded into revolution. The Ceaușescus fled by helicopter from the roof of the Central Committee building, abandoning the capital as protesters stormed government buildings. 3 days later, on Christmas Day, after being captured in Târgoviște, the dictator and his wife faced a hastily organized military tribunal, charged with genocide, destruction of the national economy, and personal enrichment at the country's expense. They received a summary trial lasting less than an hour. The verdict was never in doubt. Both Nicolae and Elena were sentenced to death and executed by firing squad minutes later. Their bodies, riddled with bullets, appeared on Romanian television that evening, graphic confirmation that the Ceaușescu era had ended. But as Romanians celebrated in the streets, an urgent question emerged. What about their children? As revolution swept through Romania, the Ceaușescu children found themselves in very different circumstances. Valentin was arrested on December 25, 1989, the same day his parents were executed. Unlike his brother Nicu, he offered no resistance. Though he held no formal government position, his surname alone made him a target for revolutionary forces. Valentin was detained at the Rahova military prison in Bucharest, where he would spend the next year of his life. His arrest was precautionary rather than based on specific charges, reflecting the new government's uncertainty about what to do with the Ceaușescu family. Zoya, like her elder brother, was arrested on December 25th. When revolutionary forces came for her, she reportedly showed no surprise. Perhaps she had anticipated this moment or had already heard news of her parents' execution. Like Valentin, Zoya was taken to Rahova prison. She maintained her characteristic dignity throughout her arrest, according to accounts from those present. As a mathematician with no direct role in governance, her detention also appeared more symbolic than substantive. Nicu's experience proved dramatically different. As party secretary of Sibiu County, he initially attempted to suppress local protests using military force. When this failed, he fled, apparently hoping to escape Romania. On December 22nd, revolutionary forces captured Nicu in Sibiu. Unlike his siblings' quiet arrests, Nicu's capture became a public spectacle. Footage shows him being paraded through angry crowds, visibly battered, with revolutionary forces barely preventing mob violence against him. Nicu's detention had greater legal justification than that of his siblings. As a government official who had ordered security forces to fire on protesters, he faced specific charges related to the deaths of demonstrators in Sibiu. In the chaotic months after the revolution, Romania's new government, the National Salvation Front, led by former communist officials who had turned against Ceaușescu, organized trials for the dictator's children. The cases against Valentin and Zoya proved relatively weak. Prosecutors struggled to identify specific crimes beyond their family connection to the deposed dictator. Valentin faced charges of undermining the national economy, an accusation linked to his position at the Football Federation rather than any governmental role. Prosecutors alleged he had illegally diverted funds to support Steaua Bucharest, though evidence of personal enrichment proved limited. Zoya faced similar economic charges, equally tenuous. Her work as a mathematician offered prosecutors little material. Instead, they focused on her lifestyle, alleging she had improperly benefited from state resources. After approximately a year in detention, both Valentin and Zoya were acquitted and released in late 1990. The court found insufficient evidence that either had committed prosecutable offenses, despite their privileged positions in Romanian society. Nicu's trial proceeded differently. As Sibiu's party secretary, he had issued direct orders to security forces during the revolution. Prosecutors charged him with genocide, the same charge leveled against his father, for the deaths of 89 protesters in Sibiu. During his trial, Nicu maintained an unrepentant attitude that alienated many Romanians. He showed little remorse for the deaths in Sibiu, instead portraying himself as a loyal official following orders during a time of crisis. In 1990, the court convicted Nicu of aggravated murder rather than genocide, sentencing him to 20 years in prison. He became the highest-ranking official convicted for violence during the revolution, though many Romanians believed his sentence should have been harsher. With their parents dead and their family name synonymous with tyranny, how would the Ceaușescu children rebuild their lives? Could they ever escape their infamous legacy? And how would Romanian society treat the offspring of their former oppressors? After his release in late 1990, Valentin Ceaușescu emerged as the most successful at rebuilding his life. He returned to his scientific work, though not at his previous level of prominence. Understanding that his surname would always define him in Romania, he maintained a deliberately low profile. In 1992, Valentin initiated legal proceedings to reclaim some of his parents' confiscated properties, including personal belongings. This began a decades-long legal battle that would continue until 2014, when courts finally granted him ownership of some items, including books and personal effects. Perhaps Valentin's most significant post-revolution action was his custody battle for Nicolae and Elena's remains. For years after their hasty burial in Gunshots cemetery under false names, the location of the Ceaușescu's graves remained unmarked. Valentin led family efforts to provide proper burial markers, finally succeeding in permitting identified gravestones in 2010. Unlike many children of deposed dictators, Valentin never left Romania permanently. Instead, he built a quiet life in Bucharest, occasionally giving measured interviews about his family, but largely avoiding politics. Today, at 77 years old, he remains the last living Ceaușescu, a quiet witness to both his family's rise and fall. Zoya's post-prison life proved dramatically shorter than her brother's. After her release in 1990, she attempted to return to mathematics, though professional opportunities were limited. Like Valentin, she participated in legal efforts to reclaim family properties and possessions. Friends describe Zoya's post-revolution years as marked by frequent depression. The execution of her parents and collapse of everything she had known left deep psychological wounds. Though she maintained her dignity in public, private accounts suggest she struggled to adapt to her radically changed circumstances. In 1998, Romanian media reported shocking news. Zoya Ceauescu had died of lung cancer at just 49 years old. Her death occurred at Fundeni Hospital in Bucharest, with her brother Valentin arranging a private funeral. Some Romanians speculated that the stress of her family's fall and her prison experience had contributed to her early death. In her brief post-revolution life, Zoya published a single book, a collection of mathematical papers, and gave only a handful of interviews. She never married again after divorcing her husband, who had distanced himself from her during the revolution, nor did she have children. With her death, another chapter in the Ceaușescu story closed. Nicu's post-revolution story followed yet another trajectory. Initially sentenced to 20 years, he served only 4 before receiving a medical release in 1992. During his imprisonment, doctors diagnosed him with cirrhosis of the liver, likely resulting from his well-documented alcoholism. Upon release, Nicu's health continued deteriorating rapidly. Unlike his siblings, he showed little interest in rebuilding his life, instead giving occasional inflammatory interviews defending his father's regime. These statements further alienated him from Romanian society. In November 1996, just 4 years after his release, and less than 7 years after the revolution, Nicu Ceaușescu died of liver cirrhosis at Vienna's General Hospital. He was 45 years old. Reports indicate he had traveled to Austria seeking specialized treatment, unavailable in Romania, but his condition had progressed too far. Nicu's funeral in Bucharest's Gunshots cemetery attracted a small crowd of former regime officials and curious onlookers. He was buried near his parents' graves, though at that time they remained unmarked. More than 3 decades after the Romanian Revolution, what remains of the Ceaușescu dynasty? One tangible legacy involves ongoing property disputes. The Ceaușescu family owned numerous homes, land parcels, and personal valuables, most seized during the revolution. Through persistent legal action, Valentin recovered some items, including family photographs, books, and artwork. In 2014, a Romanian court ordered the state to return a hunting lodge and land near Bucharest to Valentin. This decision proved highly controversial, with many Romanians arguing that Ceaușescu's properties represented ill-gotten gains that should remain in public hands. These legal battles highlight Romania's unresolved relationship with its communist past. Unlike some former Eastern Bloc countries, Romania never implemented comprehensive lustration laws to address communist-era crimes and assets, leaving cases like the Ceaușescu's properties in legal limbo for decades. How do Romanians remember the Ceaușescu children today? Surveys suggest most Romanians distinguish between the parents, still widely reviled, and their children, particularly Valentin and Zoya, who are viewed more as privileged beneficiaries than active participants in tyranny. Nicu's memory remains more controversial. His role in the CBU crackdown ensures he is remembered as more than merely the dictator's son. Yet even his legacy has softened somewhat with time, with younger Romanians having no personal memory of him or his actions. Intriguingly, a strain of Ceaușescu nostalgia has emerged in modern Romania, particularly among older citizens disillusioned with post-communist capitalism. This sentiment rarely extends to rehabilitating the Ceaușescu children, focusing instead on perceived stability during Nicolae's early years in power. The story of the Ceaușescu children reveals how dynastic ambitions can collapse overnight, leaving privileged heirs suddenly vulnerable. But their divergent fates also demonstrate different approaches to surviving the fall of a dictatorial parent, from Nicu's defiance to Valentin's quiet adaptation. What lessons might these stories hold for other children of authoritarian leaders? The Ceaușescu children's story offers a unique window into the aftermath of dictatorship. Unlike many deposed leaders who escaped with their families to comfortable exile, Nicolae and Elena's execution left their children to face revolutionary justice alone. Their fates, Valentin's survival, Zoya's early death, and Nicu's self-destruction, reflect different responses to catastrophic family downfall. Where Nicu clung to his father's legacy, hastening his own decline, Valentin adapted, finding a quiet path forward in the very country his parents had oppressed. Today, the Ceaușescu name remains infamous in Romania, but the passage of time has begun transforming raw hatred into historical assessment. Young Romanians born after 1989 may know the name Ceaușescu, but have little emotional connection to it. For them, the dictator and his family represent history rather than lived experience. Perhaps this evolution offers the story's final lesson. Even the most powerful dynasties eventually fade into history, their crimes and privileges alike becoming footnotes in national memory. The Ceaușescu children, once expected to inherit a communist kingdom, instead inherited only its collapse. Their story serves as a reminder of both the transience of political power and the enduring impact of a family name that can never be escaped. If you found this examination of the Ceaușescu family's fall informative, please subscribe to our channel for more historical content, examining the human stories behind major political events. Thank you for watching.